Welcome. You are listening to The Travel Wins, hosted by Pete Kotzbach. This is a weekly interview show about people who travel for work and all the ups and downs that go along with it. Each episode includes a variety of discussions with athletes, business people, musicians, influencers, entertainers, and even regular folks from around the world. Thanks for listening. Here we go.
Hey, my guest today is CJ Johnson Jr. I'll throw the junior in there. Do you like having the junior part?
You know, there's a really weird story behind why there's a junior.
Oh, see, I didn't.
Junior.
I didn't know that.
I am a junior, but there's also this hypnotist named CJ Johnson, and he beat me to all of the domains and social media. So that's why I use CJ Johnson Jr.
So even if you weren't a junior, you would maybe you could just say you're a junior.
Yeah, that's true.
See?
Yeah, it works both ways.
So maybe you aren't really a junior. I want proof. How you doing today, buddy? I appreciate the time.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Blessed to be alive.
Heck yeah, man. That's the one thing I've gotten out of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm healthy. We're breathing. Kids are good. Wife's good. All right, we're good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just to what you said, just like having that opportunity to take a time out and kind of understand what means so much to you and what's irrelevant. And, now it's a new season for all of us.
Yeah, and let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. So kind of give us your background a little bit. I am so excited to talk to you. I think you're the exact perfect guest for my show. So no pressure.
Oh, you froze a little bit.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Let me try this.
Froze right at the question.
That's not good. Let's see here.
Sure.
Oh, let me try this. Can you see me good now?
I can see you perfect.
Okay. Yeah. I think we should be good now.
Okay.
So I think you're the perfect guest for my show, but kind of give us a background for what you do and what you've been up to.
Oh man. Wow. I don't even know where to start. So I guess I'm best known for being an award-winning creative and being a marketing consultant. I've worked with startups and small businesses to Fortune 500 companies all around the world. I'm a prominent, influential voice as a GQ magazine insider. So I talk a lot about trend forecasting, lifestyle tips, fashion tips, and listed as one of the top creators to watch and rising voices in media by different publications. And, at the end of the day, what I'm actually really trying to do is really be a voice of inspiration, not to sound corny and cheesy.
I know.
We just live in this really odd time of existential crisis, where there's so much happening so quickly. And I want to make sure that this is the way I see it anyway. My interpretation is that I'm a bridge between emerging generations and older generations, and kind of explaining things in this really interesting storytelling way. But bigger than that, I'm a dad. I'm a girl dad. That's my proudest accomplishment, if you ask me. Proud dad of Fiona Rogue Johnson. Yes, we named her after a cartoon and a comic book character.
Perfect.
And yeah, that's that's the highlights for me.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Charlotte Johnson Jr. the third or something.
No, we always understood that we weren't going to go super traditional.
Yeah, okay.
For a while there, when we thought it was going to be a boy before we knew it was going to be a girl, I fought for Sir for many years. I was like, we have a son, we're going to name him Sir.
Name him what?
Sir.
Sir Johnson.
Yes. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And as life, there's so many ebbs and flows and so many different journeys we take. And eventually one day we actually came across a handsome man named Sir.
No.
Yes. And he told us how amazing his life was, because everybody treated him with respect because essentially they had to call him sir.
That's pretty dope. I kind of like that.
Yeah, there's even a Lifetime movie about him, so you can look this up. It's called "They Call Him Sir."
I'm writing that down. I really am.
True story.
Doc. Okay, that's my tip for the day. That's my travel win for the day right there.
That's a travel win.
That's my travel win. You got me on sir now. I'm thinking about names. And you totally threw off my game. I've seen that you do travel a lot, and some of it's for fun, but most of it seems like it's business.
Yeah, that's true. It's very interesting because I'm an Army brat. So I've lived all around the world like my entire life. I believe, at one point before I moved to Los Angeles, that became my permanent residence for the most part. I've never lived anywhere longer than 4 years. And as soon as I was born, Memphis, Tennessee, we skedaddled to Germany, spoke German before I spoke English. That's kind of like the story of my life, like always traveling, always living a nomadic life. So obviously living in Los Angeles, been here for like 20 years. It's so bizarre to even say that out loud, but I have to travel a lot. At one point in time, I did run an ad agency. And that's where I started to understand more about remote work. Before it became a thing. Like this was like right when the digital nomad scene started to like really be a thing. You could be anywhere in the world, and Wi-Fi and what remote work was very different, had a different definition to what it is post-COVID. I'm sure you remember that. I've been a
remote worker for about 12 years now. So
right. So you remember like before it was like not taboo, but it was just kind of like nobody really knew what that meant, and it was a very specific niche.
What do you mean you don't have an office to go to? It's right. Like, I don't go. I work from home.
I just work from home, or I can work anywhere I want. Yeah. And this is a true story. Obviously all the stories I tell are true, but my co-founder and I, we were in a romantic relationship. So she was my girlfriend, and we created this ad agency together, very successful. And she pushed more for remote work. And I remember at the time I was pushing more for like, no, we need an office, we need a flat, we need this. And I never forget her saying that like all we need is a laptop and Wi-Fi, and we can do our work from anywhere in the world. Why are we limiting ourselves to this? And that was like in 2017, and she was totally right. I was able to. What I was able to do was obviously a lot of the work that I did, I made it more digital. So everything I do is digital. Thank God for the cloud. Technology evolved. I had this conversation this morning with a friend of mine. I'm like, technology has just evolved where it became easier to just do everything on my mobile device and my laptop for what I do for a living. And as I became a much larger creative voice as an influencer, then it became, very interesting with how I traveled. And I do know that the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss played a large role in how I was like essentially putting this structure together of what it looks like. So I had to put together a nice little nifty game plan of, okay, well, what does remote work look like for me as somebody that loves to travel? So it became a thing where I was doing two things at once. Like, let's say if I were to go to Mexico City, I'm taking all these like gorgeous photos and videos, and essentially that's a part of like my brand identity.
Right.
And then at the same time, I'm obviously having like work hours where I'm doing marketing consulting. So having a nice balance of that was really interesting, of like knowing when and how to do that.
Well, and then it makes traveling to those locations a tax write-off.
Right.
And a true tax write-off.
Yes.
But yet you're still building your personal brand. You're still, it's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Yeah. And that's what I was looking for. I'm glad that you said that. That's just a sort of like a philosophy that I have in life. Like I'm always searching for like win-win-win.
Sure.
And even in business, it's just like, what can we do to make sure that everybody is satisfied with what's going on? And as a marketer, I'm always looking for like more than one metric of like success.
Right.
So there's obviously like the numerical metric of success, but then there's also the like word of mouth success. There's also like the word of mouth between everybody that's working on the campaign and project, which leads to more employment for you, for example.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like I'm always looking at
absolutely.
it that way. So when it comes to traveling, same. I love to travel. Why not go to these places that are on my bucket list? Why not go to these places that I can go to? Why not reach out to these places, locations that I'm staying at or visiting and say, hey, I'm an influential voice.
Here's what I can do.
Here's what I can do. And I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to do it anyway. So why
Yeah.
not get paid to do it? So, or do it for free, or like stay somewhere for free, or get paid to stay somewhere that
Yeah.
you're going to already highlight.
I just got offered I just got offered that by a hotel chain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for me, I'm not, I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if I want to do that, but
yeah.
but it is interesting because now do you find it being easy because remote work became such a catchphrase during COVID? Do you find yourself being able to reach out to these companies now saying, hey, remotely, here's what I do. I can come visit you. And now they just get it versus having to explain what you do?
That's a really good question. It's to be honest with you, post COVID made it harder because more people are trying to do it. More
Oh.
people are reaching out. So it's more competitive now than it was before. So even if I did have to explain it,
You were the only one explaining it.
yeah, absolutely.
I gotcha.
Versus them already being like, dude, you like get in line.
Yeah.
So especially like the more popular locations, those are
Yeah.
the right.
Yeah.
So that became a challenge of finding better hidden gems and going to all the places that people aren't going to.
There you
Then the
go.
conversation shifts. But to be honest with you, I don't even bring up remote work. It's just more so,
Here's
I
what I
also
do.
bring the power of the brand, the personal brand, the power of the social media value and the creative value, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about anything. It's actually much more cost effective if you're comping me at a 5, 6 star, 7 star restaurant
Yeah.
versus me, versus paying me to take photos and videos for taking photos and videos of you and then promoting you. That's
Yeah.
again win-win-win.
More wins. More wins, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's been the most influential place you've been to so far?
The most influential place.
I mean, like a place that you went to, you went, maybe something happened. Maybe you proposed. Maybe when your child was born, maybe you took your daughter.
Oh wow, that's deep, dude. I would probably say, and I've never shared this with anybody. People always ask me what's one of my favorite places that I've ever gone to, and I always answer Calgary, in Canada, and, and people are usually like, "What?"
Like, really?
Yeah, but at the time, it was a very romantic trip that I took with someone, and we had this like really amazing hike to a tea cabin and Lake Louise, Emerald Lake, just these beautiful things that like right at that moment, you're like, this is what life is all about. It was a very transformative moment. It was one of the most special moments to share it with somebody that I really cared about,
Yeah.
to see something that was very special to me. Yeah, definitely that.
I am surprised.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
When you say Calgary, I think of the Stampede because my
Right.
background, I sell Western clothing and cowboy boots.
Right.
So Calgary is a huge, the Stampede is a big rodeo up there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and again, like I said, everybody's always like, "What?"
Yeah.
I think they expect me to say Mexico because I go to Mexico a lot, or some sort
Hawaii.
of
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
But again, my life was a little bit weird. I at one point when I was 17 years old, we lived in the Marshall Islands. We
Nice.
lived on an island called Kwajalein. It's 3 miles long, 1 mile wide. No cars. Everybody rode bicycles. It's actually where we test our missile defense. If anybody wants to fuck with America, that's the first. That's where Raytheon, Boeing gets all those amazing government contracts. Put them to good use on that island. So the mainland for me for a hot second was Honolulu.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
17 hours just to get to the States.
Yeah. To the first state.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I have a listener in Kiribati.
Okay.
And I was like, I had to look it up. I was like, because that's not how it's spelled, but the T is
Right.
pronounced an S.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would someone in Kiribati listen to my show? Anyways,
I mean, obviously, your voice travels far. Obviously,
it's all my guests. I have such a wide range of guests that it's someone's going to be interested somewhere.
Well, who's been your favorite guest so far?
You know, it's funny you said you grew up in Germany as an army brat. Wee Man from Jackass, Jason Acuna, grew up in Germany, speaks fluent German.
I love me some Wee Man. I mean, who
Yeah.
doesn't love Wee Man?
Yeah. He's awesome. I'm going to see him on Saturday, actually.
Oh, nice.
But this won't air until after, but so it's okay.
Shout out to Wee Man.
Yeah. Wow. Steve Stevens, the guitarist from Billy Idol.
Okay.
Only because not just because he did the show and his wife did the show. He's been super friendly afterwards, and he actually co-wrote the theme song that I use for the show, like just as a favor. Like I didn't ask him, and he's like, "Hey, send me," and then he did it one night and sent it back to me.
Oh man, I didn't know you had it like that. You got some swag. Okay.
No. I mean, I was just like, I asked him some questions about it. I saw an interview where he did, and he said, he on Billy Idol songs, so he co-wrote all the big hits, Rebel Yell, and all that, and he did Dirty Diana with Michael Jackson, and the Top Gun theme song.
Yes,
but he always tried making a big sound at the beginning, and so I was talking about my daughter and I worked on a little 30-second track, and he goes, "Well, send it over to me." This during COVID, so he had time, and he's touring right now, so he wouldn't have time. I sent it to him, and literally the next morning he sends, "Hey, this is what I came up with. Let me know what you think." I was like,
"Wow,
okay,
thank you."
Yeah, I'm like, and my daughter's like, "Make sure you can use it."
Like, I was just about to ask.
She's thinking all the business end of it, and I'm like, "So, hey, Steve, is it okay? Can I like list you?" And like, he's like, "Yeah. No worries. Don't worry about it."
Sure.
I'm like, "Oh, okay." So that was cool. Tawny Katane. I don't know if you remember her. Model. She was one of the first video vixens back in the late 80s. And so if you ever saw White Snake with the girl doing the ballet stuff on the Jaguars.
Okay. I mean, probably not.
Yeah.
Just because,
you're younger.
Me and White Snake, might be a little off brand for me. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
White Snake is no Metallica. So,
Coverdale might be mad at you about that one. So the lead singer, White Snake, was the lead singer of Deep Purple, but so he's been around a while. But anyways,
okay.
So Tawny did that. It took me about 6 months to get Tawny on the show. She said no, but then she was following me on Instagram and like DMing me and stuff. But she said no to being on the show. I'm like, cool. Well, it's kind of weird, but whatever. Yeah. I have another person like that doing right now. She agreed to be on the show. And unfortunately, she passed away 15 days after we did the interview.
Oh, wow.
And so I hadn't even published the episode yet.
Whoa.
So I was her last interview. So I was like, it was one of those weird things. Like, and like we kind of became friendly through the DMs and all that. And she's like, I can't wait to meet you and your wife and this and that. And she had a heart failure.
Wow.
Like the Friday before I put the show out on Monday. So that was kind of,
I always plot twist.
Yeah. Yeah. So things like that, I knew at some point somebody from my show, I've had 215 guests, would pass away, but I didn't know it would be her, and I didn't know it would be before I even put the episode out.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Wild timing. Man, life is just so unpredictable.
Well, and it's one of those things, right? Where you sit there and you have that moment of reflection where you go, wow, okay. Let's not take this for granted.
Absolutely.
So like I like your pictures and that, the pictures you take on Manhattan Beach and because you're absorbing it at a much younger age than I ever did. Because I do the same thing. Like when I'm on the beach or a strand, I take pictures. I stop.
Yes.
Focus on the sunset or the pier or the water, the ocean, the trees.
I really enjoy the power of visual narrative and the power of of just storytelling, and I've always
Yeah.
been really drawn to like very visual things. And it was really interesting the way that things kind of evolved because um, I've always had a background in like film and video,
Right.
and so motion has always been my thing, my jam. And then as a hobby, I would take up taking photos on still cameras.
Yeah.
So I got really used to being in the rhythm of like waiting for moments, creating moments, capturing moments as they happen, and really waiting for things. And as it became, then as soon as everybody got a mobile device, now everybody takes photos and
Yeah.
videos. But remember how like at first that wasn't very common,
At all.
and now everybody does it. So it I'd say that it's kind of odd now, right? Because now when I'm taking a photo or video, I always remind myself of like, just get a quick snapshot of like this beautiful moment so you can have something to look back on,
Yeah.
and then put it away and then just absorb, the
The
moment.
rest. Yeah.
So yeah, hold my little daughter tight, watch the sunset, and
Dude,
then
just wait till you. I mean, I got the pictures down here, but
yeah,
you when you look back and all of a sudden you go, oh my God, she was that small. Like,
yeah,
you know, 'cause
yeah.
both my girls have graduated college, so I have their graduation photos,
Uh-huh.
but then I still have on my wall, I have the infant photos,
Right. Yeah,
So
I mean, they're going to be infants in
yeah,
your mind like
yeah.
forever. Like just the other day, I was like thinking, like my daughter's 8, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, I should just pick her up and put her on my,
Oh
I love
man.
you. Yeah,
I'm waiting for are you ready to be a granddad call? That's the next one.
that's
Yeah.
I'm sweating bullets with even the thought of that ever happening for me. I'm still the
Yeah.
cool dad. I like to think of me as like a Lenny Kravitz type dad.
Okay. Okay. I
A
got you.
rock star dad without the rock,
Without the hair.
without the hair.
He's got cool hair.
Whoa, wait a second. Wait, you don't need
He's
to
got
bring
cool hair.
yeah, but you don't need to bring my hair into this. This is a sensitive subject. Okay,
No, it's not.
it's a little bit of a sensitive subject. I
No,
like
it's not.
it, but I have to. There's acceptance. There's a level of acceptance.
Follically challenged. I get it.
Follically challenged. Yeah, there's nothing stranger than you having a child with a full set of hair and it's just wild and curly and
Yeah.
large, and then me.
Not so much.
This is it.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Except.
Yeah. I'm so excited that you just told me before we started recording. Can you give us a background of the book that's going to be coming out
Yeah.
hopefully by the end of the year?
Oh, absolutely. Correct? Yes.
Okay.
This book is entitled The McGuire Method. It's a 4-step principle into how you can transform your life and really find empowerment in who you are right now in this age of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Especially when we're just like bombarded by distractions, and there's so much miscommunication going on. Anxiety, stress, depression is at an all-time high. There's just so much uncertainty out there, and I wanted to create. I'm a big fan of minimalism, and I wanted to compile all of this sage wisdom, a lot of psychological data, a lot of like trends and pop culture, and see how I could formulate and simplify these steps that you can take and strategies that you can take to really just like increase the likelihood of success and happiness in your life.
Sure.
So I'm more than happy to share what those 4 principles are. The first one is asking better questions. And there is a difference between bad questions and good questions. There is a difference between critical questions and questions that provoke reflection and action.
Sure.
So here's a good example. When we say to ourselves, what's the worst that can happen? A better question to be asking is like, what's the best that can happen? And the reason why we always go negative first, that's just like a human behavioral trait. We tend to go negative first, and then we have to actually stop ourselves and think and go to the positive part of it.
Yeah.
It's just that's like a cultural thing. It's also just like the way that our brain is wired. We're looking for potential threats and dangers, and that's just sort of how we need to start asking questions in a way of problem solving versus creating more obstacles for ourselves. So when someone says, "What's the worst that can happen?" they're immediately setting up challenges and self-limiting beliefs. So when you're asking better
So
questions,
true.
the second step would be reflection. So you're thinking critically about what you're learning through these answers that you're finding when you're asking critical questions. And when you're reflecting on things, then you're understanding the why and the intent, even with decision making that you're doing at the smallest level. Why did you decide to drive to work and not walk? Why
Yeah.
did you decide to make dinner versus go out? And how do those actions, right,
Yep.
like fall in alignment with who you are, with your values, principles, boundaries? Now, what's happening right now in the world in which we live in is that so much of that is an actual conflict with our day-to-day behaviors, right? You can't be a kind person, but then you're also lying and taking advantage of someone with what you do for work, for example.
Yeah.
There's a lot of contradictions going on.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the reason why there's so much conflict going on with all these perspectives that are polarizing, but not necessarily. And the reason why they're so polarizing is because identity and the ego plays a much larger role in our conscious and subconscious behavior than it ever has, right? So then our third step is taking action. Now, taking action is the easiest thing that anybody can actually do, right? But we need to be intentional about the action that we take. Again, using the example of I'm staying home and making dinner versus me going out.
Right.
Why am I doing either of those two things, right? And then the final step is habits. How can we take all of this and turn it into a habitual routine? Just as you get into a car and you put a seatbelt on and you don't think about it, what can you do to be taking bold action where it's just the same as a reflex of putting a seatbelt on when you get into a car? And that is the hardest part to do because that takes time. And we live in a time where instant gratification is a way of life.
Yeah.
So if something doesn't happen right away, we typically do what? We think something is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And if we think something is wrong, what do we look for? Shortcuts. And when we look for shortcuts and those don't work, because how can they work, the shortcuts?
They just don't.
Then we give up. And that for me is one of the great tragedies of humankind. Giving up and taking an L because you just didn't push long enough and hard enough for things you're really passionate about.
It's very interesting you say all that because this podcast I do for free. It's 4 years later, people are like, when I first started, like, and then, as I do my research, you hear about pod fade and I forget the numbers. It's like the average podcaster quits after 7 episodes.
Interesting. Okay.
Because like for me, like mine's an interview show, so I'll never run out of guests.
Right.
But a lot of people think, well, I'm going to start a podcast about my insurance company or my tire. But after 7 hours of talking to yourself and talking to a camera, it's like, okay. And you didn't get that immediate gratification, right? You don't have Joe Rogan numbers, so you think, this isn't working. Right. And I'll do something better with my 7 hours. I won't. Why waste my time?
Absolutely.
And if they would have done 15 hours, maybe that big moment would have happened.
Absolutely. And I think that that's the key, that key phrase that you said, it's a waste of my time. Well, how is it a waste of your time, right? If you understand why you're doing it in the first place. If you're doing it for the wrong reasons, typically, again, that's why we have to be much more intentional, because right now we're being distracted by so many things.
Sure.
So when you say that, waste of time.
Yeah.
You're expressing yourself. Okay, that's a win. That's mentally healthy to express yourself, and you're expressing yourselves in a healthy way, and then you're doing it for other people. That's 2 wins. The third win, the bonus, is that it might take off. Now, if you're doing it for the bonus, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing it, and that's always going to be working against you. And I think that this is all about, for me, this is about, it starts with you first, right? It will always start with you inwardly. So sometimes, and this is my own opinion, when we talk about work-life balance, well, when we talk about work-life balance, and when people ask me questions and I talk about things like this, they're like, what does this have to do with marketing and branding?
It's everything.
It has everything to do with it.
Everything.
Because every CEO, every marketing manager, even consumers, they have to do what? They have to trust whatever the product or the service is, which means you have to be appealing to their desires, and you have to understand their fears and their needs and their wants. You have to. So in other words, when you're doing well for yourself, what typically happens, and I'm sure you know this, you know exactly where I'm going with this, you're sending out good vibrations to the people that are around you. And typically, they will do the same thing. That's how this works, as a domino effect. Now, when you're in a better mood, or you're doing things with intent, and you're happy about what you're doing, you understand your purpose, you're fulfilling your purpose, et cetera, you're going to do better work.
Yeah. Better output.
You're more productive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're not going to need more time for anything. You're not going to need to work harder, because you're going to be more productive with the time that you have, because you're using your time wisely. And we get distracted with all of these notifications, right? We're being bombarded with notifications, to the point where we have to be intentional about taking away our best friend, which is now our device, right?
Absolutely.
Which I feel so bad for, like, all of us, because obviously we know this, right? This isn't new news. This isn't new information I'm telling you.
I don't know exactly how old you are, but like my daughters, they're under 30, right? They've never not had their best friend.
Right.
So like for me, I remember life before cell phones. I remember getting my pager going, wow, this is so cool. Until I got it and went, this really sucks.
Right.
Because as a business person, I'm out on the road. If I'm on the 101 and I get a text saying, call, this number, I'm like, oh, no cell phone. I'd have to get off the freeway, find a payphone at a gas station, use my calling card, and they go, oh, never mind, we figured it out.
Right. Right.
So I remember life without GPS, but I just run like millennials, as I call them, my under 30 for me. Mm-hmm. They never not had the phone. They've never not had GPS.
Right. And that's and that is one of the critical reasons why we have to have more of these discussions on what we can do. And that's also the reason why there's like conflict between generations, is that, for you, you're like, well, it's very convenient for, your lifestyle is very convenient in comparison to like what I had to go through. And there's sometimes animosity about that from both sides.
Okay.
And we need to figure out a way to bridge those gaps.
I think for me, I know I can live without it.
Right.
And I think a lot of younger people don't know or don't think they could live without it.
Well, keep in mind, they also didn't have to get that skill set.
To
know what to do without it.
Well, I had to teach my daughters how to read a map.
Right.
I'm like, find this address.
and listen, and to your point, I think I have mixed feelings about a lot of this, because I do feel like you should know those skills, but also we live in a world where you don't have to know those skills, and that's like the whole point of technology in the first place, right? It's a catch-22. What happens if you lose your phone? It's like, you're shit out of luck, right? Like, is your whole world going to fall apart? But unfortunately, like that's the world that we live in. So
Yeah.
how can we move the needle forward? Like, what can we do? I always say this phrase, once the train has left the station, it's left the station.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not 8-track players aren't coming back.
Yeah.
But I accidentally left my best friend in my wife's car charging while she dropped me off at the airport.
Yeah. And how did you feel about it?
Stressed because I was like, it's got my boarding pass. My boss could text me. How do I get a hold of the hotel for the shuttle? How am I going to know? I can't reply back on emails because now customers expect you to be able to reply instantly because they know that's strapped to your hip. You used to have, that was the beauty of I mean, there are so many great things about the phone, but getting in the car saying, hey, I'm going to be on the road for the next 3 hours. So I'll check in 3 hours, and you'd have 3 hours of peace and quiet.
That's right.
Now it's like, oh, okay, let me drive and answer this email real quick.
Absolutely. And with your point, the point that you're making is so solid because that's just like a normal day-to-day thing that we all face.
It's the huge now.
Right. And especially now, it's like even if you're homeless, you can get a mobile device.
Yeah.
So it's like more people have a mobile device than they have homes in some situations. So in saying that, it's like, what can we do to make it easier and habitual to take breaks from these mobile devices? Like, what can we do so you can take that 3 hours and not do that? And again, my feeling is that the more that you're putting boundaries up of being like, hey, 3 hours during this time, I'm driving, whatever's happening, I'm not answering the phone for yourself and for other people, that, and then people see that you do that and they see how happy you are and how successful you are. It's just contagious, and maybe they'll start to do it again, like remote work. It obviously we were forced into doing that because of COVID, but after that, people were like, I didn't know that I could do this. I would rather do that.
I want to
go back to the office.
I mean, especially if you live in Southern California, if you don't have to drive on the freeways every morning and every night, you really don't want to.
Oh no, it's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. Yeah. I mean, it's in these high volume, high traffic cities, of course. And to your point, if I don't have my cell phone with me, I'm like, man, I don't have this, I don't have that. So finding like new ways of how we can take a healthy, conscious break from our best friend and develop new friendships,
real ones. Are you already thinking about that with your daughter?
As far as, yes, it's a question that comes up a lot. Believe it or not, I mean, I really lean into tech. I love technology. But I'm very anti, you're not allowed to have a mobile device until like you're a teenager. And by then I don't know what it'll look like. She is like, she's on my phone right now playing Roblox while I'm doing this interview. But yeah, I time restrict everything. I do put a book in her hand. She does play sports. We are active. But it's easy to fall for the trap of that because I see how easy it is. You get a mobile device and you put it in front of a kid, they're not bothering you anymore.
It's an instant babysitter.
You know exactly what they're doing. It's not the same as it was before. When you're kids and kids are quiet, you're like, something's wrong.
Something's up.
Something's definitely happened. They're like, oh, okay, they're just on Roblox.
Cool. But because if you travel, like if you're in Bentonville, you could FaceTime your daughter and say goodnight to her. How was school? Get your test up. But you're having that face-to-face contact, which I mean, I did that with my kids when they're in college. So I didn't have to be with them, but I could still. It's always different face. Even like the Zoom calls are better than just a phone call, in my opinion.
Absolutely, totally agree with you.
So, but using technology for a benefit.
Absolutely, and I feel like that's like a reward. Like that is, like I said, we do have to embrace technology. But we have to. There's no but. We have to figure out new strategies
Yeah.
on how we're able to not let all of these distractions influence our decision making, because so much of it is tied to egocentric and apathetic actions versus having empathy and even evolving all of these things. Like, how are we evolving technology? Like, how are we?
It's gonna be crazy.
You know what I mean? And what are the next steps? Cancer's still a thing. Disease is still a thing. We're still dealing with all sorts of different crises all around the world, and we put a lot of emphasis on like a mobile device and how convenient our lifestyles are. When in reality,
what if we put that focus on life-changing things? Yeah.
Exactly. And
that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, but we're not encouraged to do that. That's the funny part.
Yeah. Doesn't make money.
All on a very deep level, you're rewarded by having the mobile device. That's the funny part, is that you're rewarded. So you're not rewarded by doing hard work. That's hard work.
Let me ask you this question. I'm literally just thought of this. How many of your friends, people that you've met, know, whatever, don't have a phone?
Ooh, good question.
Do you know anybody that says I don't have a cell phone?
Everybody I know has a phone.
Everybody
has a phone. Everybody has a mobile device. Absolutely.
That's crazy.
I do think that a lot of them are much more intentional about when and how they use it. But I just think that it's really like, for example, I was having like lunch with one of my best friends. He's a lawyer. He, like, maybe a year ago, he was very much like, he didn't have an Instagram. He'd be on Twitter.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that's like, I'm not doing it.
I got that too. I got friends like that.
Right. And a year later, not only is he like taking photos and videos, he's like, hey, how can I build my brand?
I'm an influencer.
Yeah, I'm just literally like, what is this?
That was me.
Yes. And he doesn't live in LA. He lives in like Houston, Texas. So that just comes to show you that, we're influencing each other's behavior with all those things.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, I'm the friend that, of course, you're supposed to ask me questions about branding and marketing. That makes perfect sense. But it is kind of weird sometimes where I'm like, wow, that's, I always ask people, I'm like, what's your intention?
What do you want from it? Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you saying that, you want more followers, what does that mean exactly? Why would you want more followers? Who cares?
Yeah.
I know why I care, because for me, it's a metric. Like, that's how I make money, is like that I make more money is that I'm able to say, hey, I have this audience, and the larger the audience, the more money that brings in. Is that what you're trying to do? Are you trying to do something completely different? And I think those questions are valid.
Absolutely. When I got on Instagram originally for my photography because my daughters told me to do it.
Right.
And I was like, kids are on Instagram. I don't do Instagram, and they're like, oh, you should do it. You take good photos and all that. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, that's true.
And then my friend who started an MMA podcast in England is why I have my podcast now.
Oh, wow.
And my youngest daughter is the one that set it all up. Like, I never recorded a voice. I never heard my own voice. I never edited audio, didn't know anything. Like, I was on YouTube a lot, just watching.
So you got like the emerging generations helping you out there.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
But that was from Gary Vee.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one like, hey, if you're old, use your experience,
There you go, paying it forward. Yeah. And you never know, it's really interesting, because I always say this to people, specifically that are in your position. I'm like, when we were talking about the 7 episodes, somebody gets discouraged, you never quite know who's listening. Obviously, if you have like 10 listens or, whatever, obviously, I don't know who those 10 people are. That's not a lot, but it is supposed to build over time if you're putting yourself out there. And you never know who's listening. Like, maybe one of those 10 people, you're influencing their life in a very special way.
Yeah.
You just never know. I remember this has happened more than once. So, but I've definitely had conversations with strangers and close friends who have never commented, liked, said anything.
Yeah.
And in real life, they're telling me what I've been up to. And it's just really
And you're
weird
like,
because I'm
wow,
kind of like,
yeah,
huh, I remember
yeah.
going on a date once. This was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And and this was really bizarre for me.
Uh-oh.
Well, I was where I said some I no I we were just talking, just getting to know this person over dinner, and they're like, oh, you wear that shirt a lot,
Oh, that's crazy.
and I was like, in my mind, I had to process
How many times have I worn it? Yeah.
how many times have I worn it? How could she have known that this is a
Yeah.
first date?
What's going on?
Yeah, and then I realized that she had been looking at my Instagram stories, since the moment that we started talking on a dating app or whatever. Maybe like and maybe I wore it, like 2 days before, and she was like, but
You
that
wore it
was
again.
really
Yeah.
weird. I know that's so normal now, but at the time it was really freaky. It made me like
That's
so
still freaky.
self-conscious. I was like, holy shit, I forgot that we have this much access to one
Yeah. It's weird because now I've contemplated changing it up with my show
another.
because
Okay.
I always worry about that. Like, oh, I can't wear that shirt because, I just wore it. Now I'm thinking about just getting like 5 shirts, all the exact same. And
Yes.
that's the shirt I wear. Like Bob Ross, the painter,
Yes.
he
Yes.
always wore that denim shirt. That's just what he wore.
Yes.
You didn't have to,
Yeah,
that way
it's
you didn't
very
worry about it.
uniform. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wear baseball caps a lot, and then I started wearing dad caps just because I was too lazy to get new baseball caps.
Yeah.
And now like, I'm synonymous with like caps. Like people just always know that I wear caps a lot. And that was like by complete accident. That was just like a not a
You just had
style.
them on and yeah.
Yeah, I'm just comfortable.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I see. I never thought about like how you just said that. Because I just put out what I put out, right? Like
Right.
I don't think about what shirt I'm wearing or all that.
It's not, and I always say this because people get really anxious. Like, they're like, I didn't even think about that. And it's like not to put pressure on anybody, but
Oh no.
when you're being intentional, right? And this is the reason why I really felt the need to write this book that I wrote because I was going through a breakup with what I mentioned earlier when I was running an ad agency. So it was a very public breakup. And it was
Okay.
public because we had a whole online presence.
Yeah.
And right then, when we were breaking up, the introduction of the Instagram algorithm and this algorithm became the buzzword.
Yeah.
And I was like a victim of technology for a moment there. I didn't have to even. It was like everything was a trap. For
Yeah.
Facebook. I had to like update the relationship status or omit it. And also like people are gonna ask what's going on
Yeah.
Instagram. The algorithm shifted. So even though we unfollowed each other, we like all the same stuff. So we unfollowed each other and all of the suggested photos and videos
Yeah. Yeah. All
were
the same
her.
liked hashtags and
Yeah. And it was her. It was all photos and videos of her post breakup.
wow.
So it was hard to heal. And I was like, this is so nuts. This
Yeah.
is so nuts.
It's like breaking up all over again.
It's like breaking up all over again. You're caught, like it's hard to break free
Yeah.
and start over unless you physically delete and block someone
Everything.
and erase them from your life.
And you don't want to do that, but
That's
because you don't
wild.
hate them,
Yeah,
I just don't want to
wild.
be reminded of what you're doing.
Right. And imagine the other person that you're doing that to
Oh man.
and how awful that feels. And then you talk about, things like ghosting.
Yeah.
And ghosting isn't just a dating thing anymore. It's something that you do people ghost people at work.
Like,
Hey,
I
show up at work.
the algorithm is weird because there are people I follow and all of a sudden they don't come to my feed anymore.
Right.
Because maybe they're not doing reels or whatever, because,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, what's going on with, hey, you still there? And they're like, yeah, man.
And the funny part is that they're essentially telling you, well, you're not seeing a lot of CJ stuff because we actually see that you don't like a lot of stuff that CJ posts.
Right.
So we're going to put in front of you what we think you're going to like because you've already shown us your habits. So there is something that's really interesting to that, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the whole reason for it. We're not interacting with each other enough for us to show up in each other's feeds. And there's
That's
something
weird.
to that. It says a lot about our behavior, and there's something really interesting about that, because people always comment on it, but that's the whole point, the whole purpose for them is for you to use their product as much as possible. So they're
Yeah.
not doing it to frustrate you. They're doing it because they're trying to like mimic your habits.
But like, for example, you have a lot of followers, right? And you follow a lot of people. So there's no way you're going to go through every day and find all 2,000 of the people you follow and like and comment and post on everything that they're doing just so they stay in your feed, right?
Well, yes and no. Yes, in normal circumstances, you're absolutely correct. I'm also a growth marketer, so I do take out the time to like and comment.
Right.
I think I do like 500 a day. So if I'm following 2,000 people, within the span of like a week, I can get that engagement and interact. And I've done that just to test this theory of what you just said,
Sure.
to see if that changes anything. And I found that for the most part, it doesn't. I do see the impressions like
Oh, yeah.
quadruple. They go through the roof.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still the same as far as like what shows up in my suggested feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have tried.
I've done that too. I've spent like a couple days where I'll like, all right, I'll go through and I'm serious, sincerely.
Yeah.
I've had 200 guests, so I make sure I follow all my past guests, and I always want to promote what they're doing. And if they have a tour coming up or an event coming up, I try and put it out.
That's awesome.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, I haven't seen the XYZ person. And why is? And I go back and I'm like, oh my god, it's like 9 posts that I haven't even seen.
Same. Yeah. Yeah, it happens to me all the time. Yeah, it's a part of my workflow. So I try to be intentional about that. I always feel that I just have this philosophy of like always trying to pay it forward. So like just what you just said.
Yeah. I mean, besides the fact that I get to go, like I'm going to go see Maxi Priest at the Hollywood Bowl.
Nice.
Next month. And so of course I'm going to promote, hey, he's going on a world tour, so why wouldn't I do that? But if it doesn't come up my feed, I'm like,
exactly.
It's kind of weird. Okay, so we've been on the show for a while. This is one question I wanted to ask you. I'm old, right?
Okay.
When I was
you don't look a day over 29.
Yeah, my daughter's turning 29 this year. I better be over 29.
Aging gracefully.
I better be. GQ, when I was in high school, even like like 9th, 10th grade, so you're talking 82, 83, 84. GQ was huge. I mean, magazines were big back then. I mean, magazines aren't as big anymore. They're just not.
Right.
Do you think it still carries the weight? I love the fact that you're a GQ influencer.
Yeah, no, it still it still carries the weight. I tell this people all the time, like there's certain brand names that people perk up and get excited about.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. It's very interesting. If I say that I'm affiliated with Google as a tech policy leader, they're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, who cares? But I say GQ Magazine Insider, what?
Really?
Huh?
Yeah.
They get really excited about that. It's really interesting. I mean, it's one of the few brands that I've been associated with where they like everybody kind of has the same attitude of like, we don't have to like really, go after anybody because people are going to come to us. Like, we don't have to like do a song and pony show for anybody. It's one of the few brands
I agree.
that feel very comfortable with who they are and where they are. And I'm glad that you mentioned that about the magazines, because it is very interesting sometimes to work closely with certain brands and see how they change and evolve to the world around them. Because now the GQ magazine, it like when you get the physical magazine, it's much more for a niche audience. And obviously it's not going out, copies aren't being printed out as much as they used to be, right? It's a very selective seasonal quarterly time period. And then you have the digital aspect of GQ magazine.
Yeah.
So there's just this interesting like space of evolution, and there's such a great example for me of like how businesses and brands are changing. I mean, even now it's like there's much more emphasis on Condé Nast, which is
Yeah.
the parent company.
Yeah.
They
With a
want
lot of
to,
mags. Yeah.
right, they want to get in the streaming game. I mean, it's very interesting to see how all that has evolved. um yeah, it's really cool.
That's neat. I mean, I remember when I couldn't afford the magazines that I didn't work, my dad wouldn't buy it. I would just go to the magazine racks and just say, well, what's cool? I couldn't afford them.
Right.
Then I would try and find something that looks something similar to it.
Oh my God, I love GQ magazine and Entertainment Weekly. Those were my go-tos.
There you go.
And it was honestly like one of the transformative moments of my life, because I was doing a campaign for NBA All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles. And the campaign was essentially like, hey, you and all your close friends are like partying it up for NBA All-Star Weekend, and we're just gonna film it, take photos. And it's like, what? Um, and so we're walking the red carpet, we're
That's
getting all
pretty
this
dope.
attention. And like I remember being on the red carpet, and on one side of me is one of my best friends, and on the other side of me is the person I'm in a relationship with, and I'm flanked by other friends, and all these like,
Yeah.
Walton Goggins walks by, and the black kid from Stranger Things walks by, and Cardi B is like getting ready to perform. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like,
What's going on?
holy shit, I'm like, this is like my dream. Like, this is all
Yeah.
I ever dreamt of. Holy shit. And when it was all said and done, then they're like, hey, did you they're like,
Yeah.
they're very casual about it. Everybody's very, very casual. So maybe like a month or two after that, they're like, hey, did you see yourself in the magazine? And I'm like, oh, I'm in the actual physical magazine. This just isn't online. And they're like, dude, did you not get a copy? Like, you have like,
you're not a subscriber.
You're like in a 2-page spread. I'm like, what?
That's dope.
And so I had to get physical copies. I still have them, but I'm just like,
heck yeah,
that was phenomenal. That was probably one of the coolest, moments of my career, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that and me and my daughter were on billboards in Los Angeles for COVID prevention, and that was really bizarre seeing
yourself up there.
Huh?
So where were you at?
All over Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have videos and pictures?
I did.
Yeah.
I felt kind of weird like posting them online, because you never know what's going to go on. I don't need any bullshit. As soon as you say anything about my daughter, I might
snap. Yeah,
I might not be like,
I'm with you, brother.
I'll be roughneck CJ.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, huge billboard, and it's me and her, and it was wild. I'm like, holy crap! Like, this is crazy. Like, this is my life. And I felt so blessed and grateful that I was able to share that with her.
Yeah.
Even more so than I didn't care about me. I just was like, this is phenomenal that like she's 8 and like just kind of like, oh yeah, we're on a billboard. Like, wow, your expectations are gonna be through the roof.
Yeah. Your first boyfriend's gonna be in for a whirlwind.
It's gonna be a whirlwind. Yeah, and yeah, so it's the journey has been awesome. I think I'm still learning to respect and be grateful for the journey versus just the end of the journey and the results.
You got a long ways to go. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And the challenges and the obstacles, being grateful for that and overcoming those. And I always tell people, I'm like, always think of when times are tough, I always say to people, think of like the worst moment of your life. And gives people goosebumps when they think about that moment. And it's like, did you survive it?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. So if you can survive that, you can survive anything.
I heard a quote a long time ago, and I mean, I was probably in my mid-20s, So 30 years ago, said you can judge the size of a person by the size of their problems. Meaning he was talking, he used a reference of you go golfing, which is, I mean, you're typically in a beautiful location. You're surrounded in a park-like situation. You're playing a sport that no one really cares about, whether you win, lose, or I mean, you do the best you can. And if that little ball is going to ruin your entire day, then that's the size of you, is that little ball. Like
Absolutely.
there are so many bigger things that could be so much worse for you. So I just always thought about that. Like, okay, yeah, the dent on my car sucks. You know, the rock that just flew up and hit my car windshield, that really sucks. It's an $800 bill, whatever.
Right.
But you know what? I'm breathing. I'm healthy. I'm old enough where I've got friends that have passed away. My best friend from high school passed away from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sorry to hear that.
I'm like, that ain't me. I got another day to keep trucking along. Tawny Katane, my guest who passed away,
mm-hmm.
I'm still trucking. So
yeah, absolutely. And and then you also kind of like, even when you're putting it into perspective, it's like, yeah, maybe there's a damage to your car, and you have to pay that $800. And like to your point, that is a bummer. Even the fact that like you have the money to do that,
or a car,
or you have a car, right? In comparison to some people that don't. And that's how you get this show. Like I always tell people, especially the people that live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I always tell people, I'm like, you're living in one of like the coolest cities in the face of the planet. It's also one of the most expensive cities on the face of the planet.
It's both.
So be grateful that you're able to just like complain about your latte, or that you got like your sushi late. Be very grateful in comparison to that.
I told my daughter, my daughters grew up here in Redondo Beach, right?
Which is beautiful.
Elementary school, middle school, high school. And we would go down to the pier, and I go, girls, just remember, people saved up an entire year's worth of money to come and vacation where you live.
Exactly.
Because when you go to the pier, especially in the summer, it's all tourists. You go to Santa Monica or whatever, and you're like, people saved up their hard-earned money to come just walk on the same pier that you get to go to. You could do it again tomorrow.
Absolutely.
You could ride your bike down and see it every day this week if you wanted to.
Man, that's so funny. You taking the words right. I literally said that to my daughter like a few days ago. I was like, you're so lucky that you can like go to the ocean whenever you want.
Yeah. That's the first thing my aunt does. She lives in Ohio. I pick her up from the LAX and she goes, go to the beach.
Right.
We park. She takes her shoes off. She walks in the sand, touches the water, and then we get back in the car. And then we finish what we got to do.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing she makes me do.
And it's so unbelievable. I mean, when sometimes like, when people talk about like, LA and like, oh, the beach, everybody's like kind of chill, LA chill. It's like, of course, you're beautiful weather, beautiful scenery, and it's a blessing. It takes a lot of hard work to live here, to live your dreams, right? To be where you want to be, and where I think that I believe in destiny, and like, where you kind of like deserve to be. Like, what's meant for you is always going to be meant for you.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be on PCH later tonight, going up towards Lincoln. No one's going to be driving on that. It's going to take me probably an hour to go, 18 miles. So the yin and the yang, right?
The yin and the yang. But do you know what time you're going to do that?
About an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half. So you might catch like the remnants of the sun. You might have a little.
Oh yeah. I'll definitely. Well, I'll see it when I leave. Because that's one thing I always do is and my wife is the reason why I do that, because I lived here for a while with my first wife, went to the divorce, and you take things for granted. You stop looking at the ocean. You stop looking at the trees and the mountains and all that, because you're like, I got to do this. I got to get my kids to soccer practice and lacrosse and birthday parties, and they got to get their homework, and I got to and you forget to stop and look at the
absolutely
pretty sunset.
Absolutely.
she reminded me, she's like, if you're going to live here and pay the money to live in California, enjoy it. Enjoy the reason why so many people live here.
I totally couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Hey, so I won't take any more time. What's the best way for my listeners to see what CJ Johnson's got Jr.'s got coming up?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I would love for you to visit my official website, www.cjjohnsonjr.com, or just follow me on social media. I'm at CJ Johnson Jr. Come find me.
Yeah.
Follow me, get all the cool updates, and let's vibe together.
What did you do in Bentonville with Peely?
So I was out there for Walmart, actually.
Yeah, well, that's all that's there. I mean,
yeah, that's all that's there. I'm a Walmart engagement partner, and Peely was joining me on a creative campaign to showcase this really cool thing that Walmart does. Walmart is a really good example of another brand that's kind of like, oh, we're Walmart. We don't really talk about the cool stuff we're doing. But they actually do really cool stuff that they never really talk a lot about. But what they do is every year they have around, they let businesses pitch to them.
Right.
And there was around like 5,000 businesses from all around the nation that pitched.
That's crazy.
And then they invite, I think they invited, if I'm not mistaken, like 700 to Bentonville, and then you're sitting there. It's almost like American Idol. Like you sit there,
just go through it.
Yeah, you go through your pitch, and they will literally say yes, and this is where it will go. This is how many units we will buy, and shake your hand. You get a golden ticket. And me and Peely were like kind of covering that, and they wanted us to. Walmart was really. Walmart is really trying to make sure that they're showing how they are really taking a lot of like initiatives to help small businesses, and what does that look like? And again, my opinion is that maybe they don't do the best job talking about that as much as they probably should. But it was very interesting to see up close in person. Have you ever been to Bentonville before?
No.
So
many of the people I've talked to have for trying to sell Walmart. But
so like Bentonville is like it's kind of nuts. Most people don't know this. Bentonville is if listeners, if you don't know, Bentonville is
Arkansas.
In case you don't know, that's where Walmart is based. So that's where the Waltons live. And the Waltons are one of the few generational billionaire families in existence, American bred company that they got going on. And Bentonville's a small town. It looks like it's like right out of like Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
But it's like a cool place, and it's very like progressive. There's a lot going on, and like it's so weird because maybe like 30 minutes away is like the headquarters of the KKK, and there's nothing. So it's kind of weird because you're walking around Arkansas and you're like, the Ku Klux Klan is like 30 minutes that way. And right in front of me, there's rainbow flags and people speaking in Spanish, and the streets are completely clean, and you're just like Twilight Zone.
Yeah. My daughter just moved. My youngest daughter moved outside of Knoxville, Morristown, and I did some research, and I was like, my daughter's half Filipino. And I was like, just so you know, the KKK's up there.
Yeah. Like, just maybe not, go down Jasper Road.
I'm like,
Knoxville.
Just be aware, they're handing out flyers. I just Googled and it came up. I didn't have to hunt it down, so it's got to be. But it's interesting that the economy of you have one of the it's got to be one of the largest companies in the world.
Yeah, I think they employ like 53 million people, something like that.
So
worldwide, insane.
This one of the CEOs I interviewed on the show, he has a private plane, and Bentonville is one of the reasons why. He said it didn't make sense for me if I got to go see, and he said Bentonville, and I got to go up to all these other places. I'm not going to fly commercial into Little Rock and then drive. So he takes his private jet, flies into Bentonville.
Yep.
gets out, does his meeting, gets back in, and gets back out. I mean, it's time.
Yeah,
You know,
those planes are really small.
Yeah.
You know this. Like those planes that come in and out of Bentonville or Little Rock, like to get to Bentonville anyway, they're really small. Like you're going from like an actual airplane to like
not
like
much.
like we're like they're like you can't bring your stuff on here. That's how small of a plane it is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird too. It's like you literally
You have to be
being transformed into another universe almost. Like it's
Yeah.
a trip.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that's why me and Pilly were out there. We're Walmart engagement partners. So I talk a lot about civic engagement.
Yeah. We'll have to do a follow-up when the book comes out.
Absolutely.
Because I really enjoy talking to you, but I want to keep it to the hour that you promised me. So
of course. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
I'll have all your links for my listeners. I'll have all my links on my website to your website and your Instagrams and Twitters and everything else. Well, make sure you follow CJ. He's a good man. So
yay!
Appreciate the time, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. I'm sure I'll see you somewhere on the pier taking pictures. And I'll be like,
absolutely.
I know you. I know you. Thanks, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Talk to you later.
All right, CJ.
All right.